Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are going to tear apart this pervasive myth of passive motivation. You know, that feeling that we have to wait for the perfect inspiration or for the right mood to strike before we can actually start something. We are done with mood-dependent activity. This deep dive is all about this shift to practical, action-oriented motivation.
That's exactly right. And what we found in the sources is that, well, sustainable success really doesn't come from these unpredictable bursts of enthusiasm. It comes from systemized, disciplined execution. So our mission today is to pull out the concrete frameworks that drive consistent, measurable, small steps. The systems you can rely on even when that initial excitement is gone.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Before we even get to the external systems, the roadmap, we have to talk about the internal lens. The material draws a really critical distinction between personal growth, self-improvement, emotional intelligence, and professional growth.
Which is all about career advancement, skill development.
Right. But here's where it gets interesting. They're fundamentally interconnected. Investing in your personal growth, it actually creates the foundation for professional success to even happen.
And that foundation, it's defined by one thing: mindset. The discussion always comes back to these two types: a fixed mindset and a growth mindset.
Okay.
So if you have a fixed mindset, you believe your talents are just static, they're innate traits. And this is critical. You avoid challenges because failure feels like proof that you're just not good enough. You see effort itself as a sign of weakness.
And the growth mindset is the complete opposite. It's the belief that your abilities, even your intelligence, can expand through effort and learning. You actually embrace challenges, and failure isn't some final judgment. It's just feedback.
Exactly. It's just data for the next attempt.
So what does that look like in the real world? We saw that case study of the professional who kept putting off applying for a big promotion.
Right. They had all the hard skills. But that hesitation, that fear of failing with the new responsibility, that's the fixed mindset screaming, if I fail, it means I was never capable in the first place.
But hold on, if they're good enough to even be considered, doesn't that fear also show a healthy level of caution? How do you tell the difference between just being careful and self-sabotage?
That's a great point. And it's not about ignoring risk. It's about how you frame the goal. The sources say you should shift away from pure performance goals.
Like, I have to land this promotion.
Exactly. That's all outcome focused. Instead, you adopt learning goals. The focus shifts from I must achieve X to I must acquire Y competence.
Yeah.
So for the promotion, the goal changes from I must succeed as a manager immediately to something like, okay, for the next 6 months, I'm going to practice my conflict resolution skills.
I see. So the learning goals create this psychological safety net. It makes it okay to act because you're celebrating the effort, not just the final result.
Mm-hmm.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, now let's apply this mindset to taking real disciplined action. We all know that feeling of being overwhelmed is the biggest blocker.
It's the biggest. And to fight that, we need tools that break down complexity. This is where the idea of sprints, borrowed from Agile methodology, comes in. Agile is perfect for this because it's all about adaptability and iterative progress.
So we're taking software development tools and using them for our personal habits. How does focusing on iterative feedback change the anxiety starting something huge, like writing a book?
Oh, it changes everything.
Yeah.
Because you're never staring at the whole mountain. You're just focused on the current 2-week sprint. You take that massive goal and you break it into these tiny achievable tasks. And this gives you quick wins, which builds momentum.
Right, like the example of Sarah and her health goals. She didn't try to change her entire life overnight.
Exactly. Instead of this huge goal like go to the gym 5 days a week and cut out all sugar, her first sprint was just simple. For 2 weeks, her only focus was plan 3 nutritious meals a week and walk for 15 minutes a day.
That's so small, it's almost impossible to fail.
And that's the point. She gets that psychological reward of completion, and that builds the energy for the next sprint, which might be slightly harder.
It's so clear that just waiting for motivation is a recipe for disaster. These frameworks, they provide the roadmap you need. They demand discipline over desire.
Absolutely. So moving from the internal to the external structure, one of the strongest systems we found is the Individual Development Plan, or IDP. It's a written plan, usually for the next 6 to 12 months. But the key is that the process has 5 steps designed to keep it fluid, not static.
Walk us through those, but really focus on how they keep the plan alive.
Okay. First, you reflect on your strengths. Second, you explore opportunities. Third, you plan the actual objectives. Fourth, you execute. But the 5th step is the most important. Measure progress and reevaluate. regularly. You have to check in on the plan monthly, quarterly to make sure it's still relevant.
The IDP sounds great, but it also sounds a bit like homework. I mean, for someone who's already super busy, how do you stop it from just becoming another form you fill out and then forget?
Well, the sources stress that it's a framework for thinking, not just a form. You spend a few hours on disciplined planning now to save weeks of wasted effort later. And for those who want something more interactive, there's the GRO model.
Oh, the Geo bottle is great for getting to action quickly.
Right. It's an acronym. Goal, what you want. Reality, where you are now. Options, what you could do. And way forward, which is your actual plan. Its strength is that it forces you to define your reality before jumping to solutions. It fosters self-awareness and makes you responsible for your own plan.
And what connects all of these IDP, GROW, sprints is that they all insist on moving past vague wishes. They all rely on SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. But I think people often forget about the relevant part.
That's such a powerful insight. Without relevance, a goal has no motivational pull. It's just a task. Look at the communication skill example. Shifting from the vague hope, I want to be a better communicator, to a real commitment.
Something like, I'll join a public speaking workshop and give 2 presentations in the next 3 months.
Exactly. It's specific, it's relevant, and it demands action right now.
Which brings us to a framework designed to bake this into your daily life. Intentional change theory, or ICT.
Yes. ICT is all about bridging the gap between who you are and who you want to be. And it has 4 key steps for taking daily disciplined action.
Okay, let's slow down here because these seem like they require some real thought.
They do. Step 1 is discovering your ideal self. And this isn't just a wish. It's a detailed, aspirational picture of your future. Step 2 is discovering your real self. An honest, objective look at where you are right now, strengths and weaknesses.
And the space between those two, the ideal and the real, that's where the motivation comes from, right?
Precisely. That constructive tension is the fuel. Step 3 is creating your learning agenda, the specific plan to bridge that gap. And finally, the most important step, experiment and practice new habits. This means you have to do something, however small, every single day.
So I got the mindset, we've got the frameworks. But here's the big challenge the sources bring up. Even with a perfect plan, our natural tendency is to seek comfort, which in a world full of AI assistance introduces this comfort growth paradox.
This is where it gets really fascinating. The paradox is that when technology is designed to be super helpful and low friction, it can actually lead to intellectual stagnation. It can cause what they call cognitive complacency because it removes the very friction we need to learn and grow.
Wow, so the very tools meant to help us could actually be undermining our development if we're not careful. The solution then has to be about disciplined engagement. And that's this idea of enhanced cognitive scaffolding.
Right. This is all about how support systems should be designed for long-term learning, not just short-term help. It has 3 core principles. The first is progressive autonomy. The support is intense at first, but then it has to gradually pull back, a process called fading, as you get better.
Like training wheels on a bike. They're essential at the start.
Yeah.
But if they never come off, you never actually learn to balance on your
You
mind.
never internalize the skill.
Exactly.
The second principle is adaptive personalization. The support has to be tailored to keep you appropriately challenged. Not so easy that you get bored, and not so hard that you get frustrated. It keeps you in that optimal growth zone.
That makes perfect sense. And the final principle seems like the most critical piece for taking disciplined action. Cognitive load optimization.
It really is. It's the hinge. So we divide mental effort into 2 types. The AI or tool should minimize the extraneous load. That's the tedious stuff like data entry or scheduling. But, and this is crucial, it must maximize the germane load.
What does that actually mean, maximizing germane load? How does that work in practice?
Germane load is the productive, meaningful effort. It's the thinking, the reflecting, the connecting of ideas. That's the part that actually builds the skill in your brain. So an AI can summarize documents for you. That minimizes extraneous load. But maximizing germane load means you are still the one asking, wait, why did it connect these 2 ideas? How do these facts contradict each other?
So that's where the discipline comes in. Even with amazing tools, the long-term goal isn't just to get the task done. The discipline is choosing the friction. Choosing to do the hard thinking when an easier path is right there.
Precisely. The AI should handle the heavy groceries, the low-level stuff, so you can focus on cooking the meal, the high-level decision-making. That means every single day you're asking why the tool suggested something, or you're solving a problem the tool intentionally left for you to figure out. That's how you internalize the skill.
And this brings our whole mission full circle. The key takeaway here is that real sustainable growth means turning intention into systemized, disciplined action. Success isn't random. It's built by setting the right mindset, breaking down complexity with things like sprints, and then demanding that productive friction in the process.
I agree completely. We move past being passive by replacing waiting with building. If these scaffolding frameworks work, the human becomes more skilled, more knowledgeable, and ultimately more independent than they were before.
Which leads us to our final challenge for you, building right on that idea of progressive autonomy. Remember, the goal of the best teacher or the best tool is to make itself progressively unnecessary. But think about one major task you currently rely on a tool, or maybe even a person, to solve for you. What is the first, smallest, most measurable step you can take this week to start internalizing that knowledge, to force that support, that scaffold to begin to fade away?